Hello everyone, I'm with you today to give you an introduction to pet food labeling and claims, mainly in the context of UK and EU. So if you're attending from other regions outside of the EU, or if you're in equine business, equine nutrition businesses, please bear with me and hopefully there will be aspects of this presentation that you will find useful. So let's start with the structure of UK and EU pet food industry and how it's regulated. If we start with UK pet food companies, they come together and form PFMA, which is their trade association. PFMA represent their interest to UK government. PFMA is also a member of FEDIAF, which is the European Federation for Pet Food Industry. Other EU pet food companies have their own national associations, which are also members of FEDIAF. FEDIAF then represent the voice of the whole European pet food sector to the EU Commission. And as we know, animal feed legislation is harmonized at the EU level. So all EU national governments and UK government work on pet food legislation with the EU. There are over 50 pieces of legislation that cover the production and marketing of pet food. As you'll see on the left-hand side of this slide, there are some examples of these legislation. If we take the labeling legislation, which is Regulation 767/2009, it covers a wide range of animal species, both companion animals and food-producing animals and other non-food producing animals as well. So navigating this document and interpreting the information in it in the context of pet food is not always an easy job. To address this issue, FEDIAF has a range of industry guidelines that help with interpretation of the legislation in the context of pet food. And also ensure a harmonized approach amongst all EU member states. For example, this one on the labeling of pet food. There's also an e-learning tool for the FEDIAF labeling guide, which has all the important sections of the guideline in a digital version, along with some videos, and also it will show you your progress as you go along the different sections of the guide. So it's quite a useful tool, and it's estimated to take about 3 hours to go through the whole thing. So as we said, the guidelines, the labeling guidelines cover several different aspects of labeling, including mandatory rules, voluntary information, and pet food claims as well. But when we come to pet food claims, we come across certain claims that can be confusing. At times, they can be considered as misleading. They need to be substantiated. So what are the do's and don'ts of claims? Let's take a look. Categories of claims in the FEDIAF guidelines are content claims, negative claims, comparative claims, product descriptors, and functional claims. Then functional claims include nutrient function claims, enhanced function claims, health maintenance, and PARNOTS, which has its own separate regulations as well. And there are certain things that are not permitted. For example, you cannot claim what is applicable for all similar products, or medicinal claims, use of terms such as treat, cure, prevent disease, or dose, dosage, that kind of medicinal terminology are not permitted to be used. Now, in the next few slides, let's take a look at what kind of questions we get as an industry body. For example, with terms like with something, which means at least 4% of that ingredient need to be present, or rich in something, which means at least 14% of the ingredient need to be present. These are not in the Regulation 767/2009. So where do they come from? So although these so-called claimed hierarchy don't appear in the Regulation 767/2009, they represent a long-standing labeling practice across all EU member states. So you'll see in FEDIAF guidelines under Annex 5 of FEDIAF guidelines, which is content claims, you will see these different terms, for example, something flavor or with something, rich in something, high in something, etc. along with their corresponding value, which can be 4%, 14%, 26%. These are in the FEDIAF guide. So although not exactly legislation, this is accepted across all EU member states. And if these claims are made on the pack, on their composition, their corresponding value need to also be declared, which is a mandatory requirement. Another question, how do we substantiate claims that are made on products? Well, FEDIAF guide under section 5.3, which is substantiation rules, has the information about substantiation document, which is how the dossier needs to be documented, the scientific evidence that needs to be behind it. It is the responsibility of the feed business, whether it's the manufacturer or retailer, to have the substantiation available, and on the request from the competent authority, they need to be able to provide all the substantiation. So all of these are included in FEDIAF guideline. Another common question, what is considered as misleading? So common principles set out in the EU legislation are that all the information communicated to the consumer need to be truthful, objective, quantifiable, and must not mislead or deceive the purchaser. So it is important, and as we said before, the claims need to be substantiated, not confuse or mislead, not denigrate other products, and also be objective, verifiable, and understandable. Some of the examples that we've seen that are considered as misleading could be a product claiming that they contain no nasties. This is something that's considered as misleading because it's saying that other products contain nasties or junk-free or no vague animal terms or byproducts. The problem with this kind of claim is that, for example, if they say no vague animal terms or byproducts, they're basically implying that using legal terms such as meat and animal derivatives, which is a category of feed materials, could possibly cause harm to pets, and this way they will create unnecessary concerns for pet owners. So these are considered as misleading. Or no unpleasant nonsense, or only proper ingredients. That kind of terminology are considered as misleading. Also, we've seen some medicinal claims such as anti-cancer recipe or diet plan for proper recovery from a disease, from a canine disease. These are also medicinal claims and should not be made. And in the UK, VMD, which is the Veterinary Medicine Directorate, is the authority that would actively look out for this kind of medicinal claims which are not permitted, and they would take action against them. How does a pet food qualify as hypoallergenic? Well, hypoallergenic is a term that doesn't have any legal definition or official definition. So if a company decide to use it, they need to be able to substantiate it, because there are sometimes certain types or sources of protein that can be considered as more likely or less likely to cause adverse food reactions or allergies or dietary sensitivities. So if a company decide to use terminology like hypoallergenic, they need to be able to have the scientific evidence to substantiate this kind of claims. And finally, just before I end my presentation, we have some educational tools on PFMA website that are quite pet owner friendly. So they're good for downloading and sharing with pet owners on both pet food claims and also labeling, really useful information. And with that, thank you, and I welcome any questions at the end of the session, and I included my email address and LinkedIn profile in case if you'd like to follow up with any questions or want to stay in touch. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. I'm happy to be here with you to talk to you about the challenge of functional claims for pet food. I would like to start with sort of the basics. And the first basic would be whether you have the data to make a claim. It's rather obvious. If you don't have any data, it's clear that you cannot do any claim, even if you wish. When you don't have a data, you cannot do any claim on a given benefit or on a product or an ingredient. On the other hand, when you have the data, there might be situation where obviously you can do the claim you would like to do, but there are also situations where you cannot do the claim because the claim you are aiming to do is out of the regulatory scope that you are in when it comes to pet food. You are not allowed to do all the claims that you wish because of the legislation, basically. Now, I would like to show you the Article 13 of the Marketing of Feed Regulation. So that's the EU Regulation 767/2009, where in the Article 13 you have a full description of what can be done as when it comes to claims, and that's a very important piece of legislation for making claims on pet food and on feed in general. For those products, for the pet food, so compound feeds or feed materials, so the ingredients we would use in the pet food, you should keep in mind that the claims are assessed on a product by product basis. And when it comes to those claims, they are also assessed by each member states, meaning that a claim that would be accepted in a member state might not be accepted in another one. So that's something which makes our lives not so easy, but that's the situation. If a member state has doubt regarding the scientific substantiation of a claim, they may submit the issue to the European Commission, and the European Commission may ask the EFSA to review the substantiation, review the data, and publish an opinion. And on the basis of that opinion, the European Commission may adopt a decision. So far, there have been no cases like this, but it may still happen. And at the end of the day, you should keep in mind that the responsibility of a claim is the responsibility of each operator. So it's your own assessment, it's your own decision at the end of the day. When you do a claim on your pet food product, it's your own responsibility. This is not the responsibility of your supplier and so on. This is your decision at the end. Let's have a look at what we cannot claim. In this Article 13 I was mentioning, it is clearly written what we cannot claim. First of all, we cannot claim or we cannot suggest that pet food has particular nutritional purpose. So that's the so-called dietetic claim, unless the requirements of the regulation 2020/354 are satisfied. In this case, you would be able to do the dietetic claim, and we will talk about that later on during the presentation. You cannot also claim that a product would prevent, treat, or cure a disease. In this case, if you would claim that, that would make your product a veterinary medicinal product, and obviously, if your product is not a medicated feed, you cannot do this kind of claim. So, just to insist on that, it's really important that in case of a pet food, in case of a feed, you are not allowed to do veterinary-like claims. So preventing, treating, curing a disease is something that cannot be done. It's also not possible to claim that a product may be used in animals with a view to restoring, correcting, or modifying physiological function. But what is acceptable according to the Article 13 of the regulation is to do claim related to support or protection of the physiological conditions. This is permitted. At the end of the day, you should keep in mind that the wording of the claims is key to avoid borderline claims. So be cautious, be clever when you are making your claims to avoid being in trouble. Let's have a look at some example when it comes to the wording. So here we are presenting some examples that we would consider as not acceptable, and we would see some rephrasing to make the claim acceptable. If in the first case here on the left-hand side, you can see that the claim says that a product with prebiotics would prevent diarrhea in puppies. Such a claim won't be accepted because impaired digestion is not part of a normal physiological condition functioning of the body. And in this case, that would make it a veterinary-like claim. So you would need to rephrase your claim and something like the product rich in prebiotics designed to help promote intestinal well-being or to support digestive health of puppies would be accepted, because maintenance of health, of well-being, or prevention of a digestive disorder is in general and can be linked to a feed solution. So that would be an acceptable claim, even if it's less sexy, I would say, than the one you wanted to do. Another example, here you have an ingredient in a pet food that can help, or that is claimed to reduce respiratory disease in dogs and cats. Again, this claim won't be accepted because you would claim that you are treating a disease, and this is not possible for a feed. So in this case, you would be only able to claim that this product would help reinforce dogs and cats' natural defenses, and that would be acceptable because maintenance of health or well-being can be attributed to feed solutions. So that would be acceptable as well. The last example I wanted to show is some kind of claims that we often see, and this is the claims that are related to reducing medicinal treatments. So this kind of claim is also not acceptable because nutritional solution, feed solution, pet food cannot be claimed as a tool to replace the use of veterinary medicinal products. So when it comes to medication, you should always be very cautious when you communicate about that, but it's very often that we see companies or your colleagues willing to do this kind of claim, but this is really, I would say, dangerous to do this kind of claim. And in this case, again, the claim would be around helping to maintain the health of the animal rather than to speak openly about reducing medicinal treatments. Let's have a look at what we can claim now. The Article 13 again is talking about what can be claimed and stating that the labeling and the presentation of a feed material or the compound feeds may draw particular attention to presence or absence of a substance, to specific nutritional characteristic, or to a specific process or a function. I'd like to show you the example of MeloFeed, which is a product, a complementary feed marketed by L'Allemand, and this complementary feed is rich in superoxide dismutase, SOD. It's a primary enzyme of the antioxidant defense system, and this is the only enzyme with dismuting superoxide activity. The product is made out of a special variety of melon, and as you can see here, thanks to the richness in superoxide dismutase, this melon variety is very much has a much longer shelf life than a traditional variety. With this, we have plenty of data on the superoxide dismutase from this specific melon variety in humans, and in humans, benefits such as physical recovery, physical pain relief, stress relief has been those benefits have been demonstrated. And we obviously have also some data in animals. For example, here we did a trial in sled dogs. And in this case, it was demonstrated that thanks to the use of MeloFeed, rich in superoxide dismutase, we have been able to help reinforce the antioxidant defense system of dogs in challenging conditions such as their intense physical activity during races and so on. So that's data we have available for this product. We have also data in competition horses. I will not enter into the details of the data, but you will be able to have a look at the presentation afterwards. And also, if you have specific questions, you can refer to our PET team that they will help you there. So from this trial, we have shown that Melofeed helps maintain muscle integrity. And thanks to the enzymatic activity of the superoxide dismutase, we have the stimulation in synovial fluid, and it helps maintaining the joint integrity. So that's also something that is really really nice. So at the end of the day, you want to be able to claim something on the product. The research shows a lot of benefit of this Melofeed, such as reduces incidence of obesity, reduces body pain, anti-aging properties, immune support, helps improve semen quality, and so on and so forth. But some of those benefits might be seen as veterinary-like claims, and you may not be able to claim all of these benefits on a pet food containing Melofeed. So what can be claimed easily is obviously naturally rich in primary antioxidant. You could also claim contains dried melon juice, naturally rich in SOD, primary antioxidant. And another type of claim that can be done is can help prevent cellular damage of the tissue caused by free radicals, for example. Of course, you may like to do stronger claims. And other claims that could be done on a pet food containing Melofeed might be a claim like helps improve joint and muscle resistance to damage during activity, can help maintain joint integrity, or can help relieve physical body pain after intense activity. You should keep in mind that those stronger claims may not be accepted by all member states, meaning that you may like to pre-check with your competent authorities whether or not that would be acceptable for them. And there are some member states that are offering this kind of service, so you can contact them and they would tell you whether or not they see it as okay for a feed, for a pet food or not. So that can be wise. And at the end of the day, you may be, let's say, forced to use claims in one country, but you may not be able to use the same claim in another member state. Looking again at the type of claim that can be done according to Article 13 of the Marketing of Feed Regulation, you can do claims concerning optimization of the nutrition and support or protection of the physiological conditions. Those are permitted claims, so meaning that well-being-like claims are possible if a link between nutrition and or support or protection of physiological condition is demonstrated. Here, I'd like to show the example of Young. Young is another product from L'Allemand, which is a combination of different inactivity D strains. And those strains are each produced using a dedicated process. And thanks to the right combination of the three strains, we have a product that has a strong pathogen binding capacity, has benefit, but also this product is shown to benefit to the immune modulation, and is able to have a broad and balanced immune modulation when you use Young in your pet food, for example. This the superior binding capacity of the product has been validated in vitro. So when you compare the use of Young to another so-called Moss product, it has been shown that Young has a much stronger binding capacity of E. coli, and it is shown that in the feces of dogs and cats, you have a reduced number of E. coli. Young has been shown to be beneficial for the digestive care of dogs and cats. We have shown that the total microbial population, as well as the beneficial bacteria population, was increased in vitro thanks to Young, and it has also some synergistic effect on immunomodulation, and we have shown higher IgA content in fecal samples, which is a demonstration of a greater immunomodulatory ability in vivo that was shown in vivo this time. So again, what research shows regarding young? It has been shown that it will stimulate beneficial microbial population. It has immunomodulatory abilities and also superior E. coli binding capacity, for example. Again, some of those claims might be seen as veterinary-like, or you may also look at customer-friendly language, because some of the benefits that you have shown, the way it's expressed, might not be customer-friendly. So regarding the claims that we would do with young, one could be help reinforce the immune system and support gut health. Another one would be young can help strengthen the natural defense of dogs and cats, or young helps better balance in the gut microflora. The last one I wanted to mention is this one, young feed material for dogs and cats well-being. That's a nice claim, but you should keep in mind that sometimes some claims are considered as too vague. And a claim like feed material for dogs and cats well-being might be considered as a bit too vague by some competent authorities, and accordingly, they won't be acceptable. Another example of a product from L'Allemand is the Tantalized bacteria. Tantalized bacteria are heat inactivated bacteria. They are considered as paraprobiotics. And the tantalization is a specific inactivation process that helps maintain cell integrity, so the cell walls are not broken. And thanks to this gentle inactivation process, the adhesion capacity and the immunomodulatory properties of the bacteria are maintained. Different strains, different species of bacteria are proposed, and each of them would have a different benefit. The tantalized bacteria, the mode of action would be the adhesion capacity, the competition with pathogen, and when it comes to the benefits, one of the benefits is the digestive care. Thanks to the use of tantalized bacteria, it will help restore intestinal microbiota or help stabilize the gut flora. And they have also a role in immunity support. The use of tantalized bacteria can help modulate immune response, and also they may play a role in allergies. Regarding the claims, you should keep in mind that that the claims would be strain specific. They are mainly based on human data. At this stage, we don't have data on pets or on animals. We are working on it, but at the moment the claims are mainly based on human data. And again, as usual, we should look for customer-friendly language, and we should avoid veterinary claims. So depending on the strain of tantalized bacteria, the different type of claims that are possible are help balance intestinal flora, help prevent digestive disorders, help supports natural defense, help reinforce natural defense, and this kind of claims. I mentioned earlier during the presentation about dietetic feed claims. So those claims are related to Commission Regulation 2020-354, which is a new regulation that will enter into force by the end of this year in December. And this regulation is repealing the Directive 2008-38. This is also the dietetic claims you may heard about, also particular nutritional purpose, or PARNUTs, or PNPs. And in this case, you are able to make the claim, the dietetic claims, only if your pet food, your feed, is compliant with the composition as described in the regulation, and obviously also if your label is compliant with what is mentioned in the regulation. In this regulation, you will see about 30 dietetic claims that are approved for dogs and or for cats, and there are also a few for horses, and most of them are associated to well-being. Here, I would like to show two examples. One is about support the preparation of oestrus and reproduction. This is a claim that can be done in mammals in general, so including cats and dogs. And there is another example, which is support the preparation for and recovery from sport effort, and this one is for horses. In L'Allemand, we are selling Alcocel, which is an inactivated yeast enriched with selenium. And this organic selenium source can be used in dietetic feed with the following claims. For example, the one in horses support the preparation for and recovery from sport effort, because as you can see in the regulation, the selenium content is part of the um, of the claim, I would say. And also in cats and dogs support the preparation for estrus and reproduction, where again pet food rich in or containing selenium can claim this kind of benefit. The advantage, I would say, of dietetic feed claim is that as soon as they are in the regulation, you do not need specific data to substantiate the claim. So as soon as your product is compliant with what is mentioned in the regulation, no need for specific data to substantiate your claim, and your claim cannot be challenged by competent authorities. Talking about competent authorities, we are moving to the control of the claims. So basically everything about a product can be questioned. The label of the product data sheet, the website where we are mentioning your claim, the adverts you are making in the press, the brochures of your product, the trial summaries, the social media, the videos that you are posting on YouTube and so on. Everything can be checked by your customer, by your competitors, obviously, and ultimately by the competent authorities. So that's everything about a product that can be controlled, and you should have in mind that also some competent authorities are looking not only at the documentation that is pertaining to their territory, but they may also look outside their jurisdiction, and this is obviously easy when it comes to internet, social media, etc., because they are accessible from anywhere. So please keep that in mind when you are indicating claims on a documentation about a product. Everything can be controlled. What tools do you have to make sure that you are creating your claims according to the rules? First of all, you should look at the legislation, and there are a few pieces of legislation in the EU where you would find some information regarding what can be claimed or what cannot be claimed. So that's the General Food Law, Feed Additive Regulation, Marketing of Feed that was mentioned today, and also you have to make sure that you are not infringing the veterinary medicinal product regulations. Fortunately, we have also industry codes that have been developed on the basis of the Regulation 767/2009. You might all be aware of the code of practice from FEDIAF. There is also, which is for pet food, and there is also a similar code that has been developed by FEFAC and Copa-Cogeca regarding food producing animals. So that's EU applicable codes of practice. But there are also documents that have been developed at national level. I would like to mention the example of France, where on the one hand, the industry association has developed guidelines, but also the authorities have developed guidelines on their side. And in this case, the ANSES in France has developed guidelines for the substantiation dossier. So basically, what kind of data they are expecting to accept your claims. So really the scientific substantiation of your claims, this is what is described in those guidelines. But it's not only in France where you have guidance documents. You have guidance documents in the UK that have been done by the FSA. You have also documentation guidance in Netherlands. In Belgium, you don't have guidance as such, but you have the so-called list of acceptable claims. So you would have type of claims that are acceptable for a pet food, for a feed, and you have more where you will see that in Denmark, Germany, Switzerland, etc. Some documents have also been published by the authorities. Finally, I'd like to talk about the claim dossiers. So the dossiers, that's basically mentioned in the regulation that when you are claiming something on a feed, on a pet food, the scientific substantiation should be available at the time the feed is placed on the market. It's also stating in this article that the claim is subjective, is verifiable by the competent authorities, and is understandable by the user. So that's really important that what you are stating is meaningful and can be verified. And at the end of the day, it's mentioned in the regulation that the purchaser should have the right to bring to the attention of the competent authorities their doubt. So basically, that's when the trouble may start if you are making a doubtful claim, and when the competitor most likely would refer and would contact the competent authority to raise their doubt about your claim. The kind of data that you can use to substantiate your claim can be as simple as formulation evidence. When you claim that your product is rich in something, you should have a formulation evidence. You should have some analytical data to prove that. Scientific papers can be used. Scientific opinions from the EFSA, from any international or national authority can be used, but obviously you can also use your own in-house data, your own commercial trials, R&D trials showing the benefit of your product, again looking at endpoints that would be feed acceptable and that won't enter into the world of veterinary medicinal products. It can be your own data. It can be the data from your supplier. If your supplier is providing you data showing that a given ingredient has given benefits, you can use them to claim to do claim on your pet food. With that, I would like to thank you for your attention, and we are all ready for answering any question you would have. Thank you very much.